All right, let's get going today. We'll have some more people trickle in, but really excited for today's session. This is all things tabular in Tableau. So we're going to talk about how you can enhance and kind of beef up your Tableau reports that are maybe more tabular driven. So really excited for Lauren to cover this today. Just a reminder, this is our monthly data-driven community. We have all the sessions are recorded on the Zeomatrix YouTube channel. So every single session is posted there. Um, Tell your colleagues, tell your friends. You know, the bigger we get this community, the better it gets. The more people, the more reach we have. So appreciate you hopping on today. Let me go to the next slide here. All right, so here's our agenda for today. I'll just go over a quick meeting format. I'm going to fly through my slides as usual. You guys have met me before if you've been on any of these data-driven events, but I'm really excited that Lauren Cristaldi is going to be taking us through a presentation today. She's a senior consultant with us, and she's going to be giving our tech talk on all things tabular. We'll try to leave a little bit of time for a Q&A. And if there are any follow-up questions that people have, you can absolutely reach out to us via email. And, you know, any communication that you want to have with us, we're happy to take stuff offline to help out. Okay, just a quick reminder about the meeting format. We've kind of changed our meeting format so everyone is able to come off mute. So if you do have a question and you want to pop off mute and ask that question, you are absolutely good to go to do that. Otherwise, you're more than welcome to use the chat window that you could type in a question, and I'll keep monitoring that today. We typically do send some surveys out after these sessions. So if you have ideas, if you have presentations that you want us to focus on for future sessions, that's really helpful for us in planning. So let us know, what you'd like to change, what you'd like to see more of. And at the end, we'll have that Q&A. All right. Cool. So here's our featured speakers. You guys know me. I've been in Tableau 10 years. Love the product, obviously, as Pat and I were coercing about a minute ago. But Lauren is our featured speaker, and she is tremendous in the product. And she is going to be taking us through a number of scenarios of how you can enhance your tabular, kind of more table-driven reports. And I'll just say this about Lauren. She's a tremendous consultant. She's a delight to work with, and she's incredible with formatting and design. Her eye for detail is awesome. And you'll see that today in the presentation. All right. So all things tabular. These are the topic areas for today. We'll probably weave in some other things. But what we're going to do is talk about out of the box tables to start. Just, what does Tableau allow you to do out of the box? We'll get into conditional formatting in Tableau for tables. We'll talk about dynamic sorting and adding things like tooltips and other elements that can enhance your tabular reports. And then we have a really cool example with chart tables. So think a report that has tabular data. It also has charts. It also has KPIs. It's really, really interesting. So I'm going to stop talking, Lauren. I'm going to turn over everything to you for the live demo, and I will stop sharing.
Yeah, sounds good. Thank you for the intro.
You bet. And I'll give you a screen check, make sure we can see everything. We are good to go, Lauren.
Sweet. All right, welcome to Totally Tabular. So this is just like a high level, and we're going to send out these workbooks at the end so that you can, use the calcs that I've created and kind of take time to go through it yourselves as well. But we're going to start just, the default out of the box tables probably look really familiar, very similar to Excel. Then we'll get into the conditional formatting, some dynamic sorting, and viz and tooltips. And finally, the chart tables, which are they look really scary, but I promise that it's actually really easy. So the first page, we see our basic tables just for comparison. This shipment tracker, we're going to turn into our chart table, and the order summary we're going to use for the conditional formatting, and sorting. And this is another page just with all of them so you can see. So let's get started. We'll start with the order summary. I'm going to create a new tab. You can see over here, I grouped everything by folder. This is a good quick tip to stay organized. If you have a data source that only has 2 tables that are joined or have relationships, or it's more simple, then I recommend using this group by folder instead of data source table. That way you can keep especially all your calculations together to reference. So we're going to start with our parameters. I always like to start with my date parameter first. We'll edit this, I'll flash it up. So with the date parameter, I just use date, any value. A good pro tip is to create another field that's just the today function, and I'll show that. Basically, every time you open the workbook, it's going to default to today or whatever date you would
Lauren,
want.
so that's just to clarify, that's a formula where you just type in today and it references Tableau's, it references today, whatever day we're in.
Right. And here I'll show my
That's
main
a good
calcs.
tip. Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's super, super easy. You just type in today and it already knows how to recognize it.
Cool.
So I'll show that parameter. I like to show all my parameters when I'm building stuff out, just so you can do checks as you go. Then we're going to bring in, we'll start with, oh, sorry, I missed one. We're going to bring in this filter that's actually the action for the parameter, and I'll show that calculation. So we're just saying that the month of the ship date is the same month as the reference date, to be today. And then the order date, so orders were placed before today. Because in this data set, so this is just Superstore, and they have, order dates in the future. It may not be relevant depending on your data, but we just want to look at stuff that's already been placed. Now we have that filter in. We can bring in order ID. Oh, sorry, not order ID. Category. And then our subcategory to rows. And with Superstore, we already have those hierarchies provided. Basically, the hierarchy just creates that drill down. You hit plus or minus, and it expands within that hierarchy. After that, we're going to add in our measure values. I just use the main fields. Another quick tip that can save time is you just select the first measure value and then the last one. You hit shift and it'll highlight all of those. You can drag them to show me and it'll generate that measure value shelf. So now we have all of our measure values and the dimensions that we care about. But I don't really like that it says count of orders because that's a generated field. If you want to change the name, we could do an alias. But I usually recommend to create another calculation because if you try to replace the data source, those aliases are going to get wiped out, or if you need to replace the data source. And then you have to go back through and re-alias everything, and it can be a major time suck. So I would go up here, going to replace that count of orders with our orders placed calc, which I'll show now. Yeah, so this is just a count of the orders. You could also do a count of order ID, but either way works. And now that name will stay the same no matter what. I'm going to move this zoom window. So next, oh, I'm just gonna make this fit the width. That way things are laid out a little bit better. Okay, now we have all of that in there. Next, we are gonna bring in our index calc. This is my featured calc today because we're gonna be using this a lot. So index, another just like today, is just a function out of the box. You put it in here. You can also type it in up here, but I find it easier just to make a calculation for it. We'll drag index to rows. We're going to change this to be discrete. And now we have this number, the row number essentially, for each row. If we bring that all the way to the left, now we don't have that weird grouping, which it can be nice if you're just using it in Tableau, but if you wanted to export this to CSV or Excel, which happens a lot, it's gonna get funky with just having furniture once and a lot of blank rows after it. And we don't really need to see the index number, so I like to hide it by unselecting the show header from the dropdown on index. Yeah, now we have the value per row. We take it a step further, we can get into our sorting. So index is really powerful. It's not only will it make it so that you have, you can do rankings or a value per row. You can also do custom sorting, which I know you can sort over here. You can actually use the same sorting calculations, but I've been doing this for 7 years and I still can't figure out should I use nested or field sort? So I would just, cut your losses, just do it through the index. So if we look at this one, I have 2 different sorts for the different sheet examples, but we're going to use sort by 2. So create the parameter first. I'd like to do a data type of integer for my parameters, because this way, if you decide that you don't want profit, you want cost or another value instead, it's a lot easier to just change this display. And we'll go into that calc. It'll make more sense. So the sort by action is actually driving everything. So yeah, if you wanted to change that, then you would have to change it here as well to where it would say, instead of profit, it would say cost, and then also change this. So it's a small time save, but those add up. So yeah, this can be our sort by action. Basically, we're taking each of these measures and we're saying, we want to sort by this one in particular. And the sort order is also important because this is how we determine if it's going to be descending or ascending. And we're just using that integer parameter type with a 1 or a -1. So I'll go ahead and I'll show my sort order and my sort by so we can test it. Now, if we go into index, we're going to do edit table calculation, specific dimensions. You can leave everything else the same. So we'll go to sort order, custom, and we'll go and find that sort by action. And I always set it to descending first. Doesn't really matter because we're going to control the order, but that's just what I normally do. So yeah, now we have a custom sort. You can sort by quantity, orders, or any of these.
That is really cool.
Yeah, the power of index. Who would have thought?
So a couple parameters, couple calculated fields. You have to have a sort order. And then you have to go into the table calculation of index.
Right. Yeah, you just
Hmm.
edit that table calc.
Wow.
It's like 3
That's really
clicks,
cool.
4 clicks, and you're good to go.
Yeah. That was awesome. Does anyone have any questions on what Lauren built right here? Otherwise, we can move on, Lauren.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Okay, nice. That's really cool.
Okay, so next, let's make this look nicer. So, up, so first, let's do our dynamic or conditional formatting by the columns. In order to do that, you can either bring measure values from the left, or I like to do the command or control, depending on your machine. Click of measure values, drag it to color. Now you can see like the text is colored, but if you actually want it to be filled in, it's like a row highlight, you need to change this to square. Now everything is filled in, and we can change the color over here, but this is still kind of wonky because we're trying to compare a negative 700 some odd dollars to $7,000. So it would be better to say on the marks card, go to measure values, use separate legends, and now each column is being, colored for that column's values, not across the entire table. And then you can take it a step further and say, we can leave these other ones, whatever color range. What I like to do with profit is I just want to see which profit values are in the red or in the green or in the black here. So I just change that first custom diverging to a red color, and then the second one just to a green. We'll tell it that we only care about those two colors. We don't need to know the range. We just need to know if it's negative or positive. Then you go to advanced, and we'll just say starts at -1. So if any value is negative, it'll be red, and it'll end at 1 or +1. So any value that's positive will be green. Now at a glance, you can see these are my categories that are in the red for this month, and these are my categories that are in the green.
That is a great tip. I've never thought to do that. That's great.
Yeah, with profit, I feel like it makes the biggest difference because you have, negative or
Yeah.
positive. Now, if you want a whole row to be highlighted to see which ones are negative instead of just the column, we would remove the measure values from the color, and we would replace that with just profit. Again, I'll do the command or control click, drag it to color. And now we can see this whole row is in the positive or is profitable, and then the red rows are not. And sometimes you can cut down the noise if you just care about if it's negative. You can say, instead of green, I want this to be white. So, and I always save my colors over here with my color dropper. You don't have to do that. Just remember the hex code for white is always all the Fs. Say okay. Yeah, now we have, it's just calling out which categories have not been profitable recently. And that's it for this section. We can move on to the more advanced chart table if you don't have any questions.
That is really cool, Lauren. Yeah, feel free to use the chat window, come off mute if there are any questions on section 1 here. All right.
Sweet, I
Cool,
must be doing
Lauren.
a good job explaining.
Yeah.
I'm happy about that. Okay, so the next section we're going to be making, just to reference this again, we're going to be creating this. So this table is combining different chart types and value types just to make it easy at a glance. It would also be great for like a PDF or image download, because you can just spin this out and get everything you need with the different
Lauren,
labels.
very quickly, just to, I guess, show the group, like, what are we looking at here? It looks like you've got order information, when the orders were placed, whether they were shipped, destination, order quantity, and order sales, right?
Right. Yeah, we're basically just saying, and you can, turn this into any kind of chart, but for this example, I just wanted to track all of the shipments that are happening this month for orders that were placed from like the past to today.
Right. And this is a great shipping example, and I think it's safe to say this would work with any data. The idea is more conceptually that you kind of have tabular data along with some shapes, along with bar charts, along with rounded bars as well, which is very interesting.
Yeah, I love rounded bars, and I'm really excited to show everyone how to do that.
Cool. Yeah, keep going. That's awesome.
Yeah, for this one, our first field is going to be the order ID, and that's in my main field. We'll drag that out. Yeah, we'll put the order ID in there. Next, we're going to want to make 5 dummy measures. So what that means is we're just going to say min 0. This could also be average or max or really any aggregation like that. We just need it to be an aggregate value of 0. So I do command or control click and drag, and we'll just make 5 of these so we can keep track of our progress. That's all 5. So now over here, we have 5 different marks cards. We go to the first marks card, that min 0. We're going to bring in our, oh, I missed a step. We want to apply that date field here as well. So we'll take that, show the parameter, put that to true. And now we're just working with relevant orders for our date. So bringing in fields, the first column is going to be our order ID with the days since the order was placed. So we grab order ID again. And we're just going to put that on the label. We're going to change this mark card to a text type. So yeah, now we have order ID there. Since we already have it here, we're going to just go ahead and hide this one. We just need it for sorting purposes. So we have our order ID. Now we're going to want our days since order was placed. And that calc is just a max of the date diff between the order date and the reference date. So that's just telling us how many days have passed in between these 2 dates and giving us just one value for it. So if we bring that in, oh, and it went back. Got to make sure you're on the right marks card. So we bring that in, we can see, let me show this header again. Because we're stacking them, we need the row height to be a bit taller. So I'll just drag it, and now it'll all fit in there. Hide that. See, like this one is 1 day. We can go to really take it up a notch. We can make a calculation that tells it has like a dynamic label. So it'll have the number of days plus some dynamic text based on the value. If we edit that, this is saying that if the order was more than a day ago, or more than 1 day ago, we're gonna have that plural label. But if it was only yesterday, then it'll only say singular day. Or if no days have passed, then it was the same day.
It's like the first time I've seen ABS used, the absolute value, practically. That's really cool.
Oh, really?
Well, and it's a good trick, I think, just getting the right like if it's plural, if it was yesterday. Yeah, that's really
Yeah,
cool.
that's one of those little things that it's like a little detail that I feel like makes a bigger
Mhm.
impact than you realize,
Yeah.
just having that dynamic label. So we'll drag that to text. We can remove our other one. Yeah, and now we have it to where we're saying, here's the order ID. This is how many days since it was placed. If we go in to edit the text, you can format it however you want, but I just like to call out the order ID, and it defaulted to having that first. So let's change that around. Put that order ID on the top and bold it. Yes, now we're calling out this is the particular order that we're looking at, and then denoting how many days since it was placed. Now that we have that, we're going to go to our second marks card. On this one, we want to track the status. So that's a couple calcs. If we look at the shipment status calc, say edit, you can see this is telling it which category. You're like making custom categories basically. So if the ship date is less than or equal to the reference date parameter, then we're saying it's shipped. If it's greater than today for the reference date, then it's been scheduled. But you can add any number of these just as long as you have that defined in your conditions. So we're going to drag shipment status to the label. We want to change this marks card to be text. So we have, oh, I'm sorry, not text. This one is going to be a shape. So we have shipment status with the label. We're going to drag it again to shape. So these are just out of the box shapes from Tableau Desktop, and I already have them defined on my other sheet. So it automatically knows or remembers which shape to assign to those statuses. And the same goes for when we drag this again to color. I already defined it, so it remembered and brought it into this new sheet as well. So now we have our status. And I thought it was also good to have the actual ship date added in there. So we drag ship date to label as well. And we'll go into the marks card and we want to see the exact date and make it discrete. Yeah, now we have status and when it's going to be shipped. And you can go in here again into that label on the marks card and say, I want to see the shipment status first, then the ship date, and I want to call out the status. Now we can go to the third one. On this one, we're going to have our destination. So first I would add in the customer name. So we care about who's receiving this shipment and where is it going. We'll change that to text. And for location, because in this case, we only care about the city and the state, to kind of simplify it, this is how you do like a concatenation in Tableau. Usually, like in Excel, you would just say concat function, but Tableau doesn't have that. So you do city plus comma separating it. You need that space so it knows to put a space in between and then the state. We'll drag shipment location onto text. Now we have our customer and the location for that customer. We can go in again We'll say customer name, put it at the top, and we'll make sure that it's bolded so we can call out that or highlight that more. All right, now we have our destination done. We're going to go to the fourth one, which is our units, and now we get to do the rounded bars. So rounded bars, we're actually going to change this min 0 placeholder to be the measure values. And from there, we're going to use that quick like shift and then go down the list, because in this case, we only want to see quantity and the 0 calc, which I'll also show. But yeah, if you just hit shift after you select the count of orders, go all the way down to profit, remove. We'll do the same for sales to sort by, remove, and then these two. So yeah, now we have the measures that we actually care about. We'll change the measure value type to the line option. We're going to drag measure names onto the path. Then we're going to drag measure names again onto the color. And if you adjust the size, they're a little bit thicker, so easier to see. But yeah, these are true rounded bars with a gradient color added, because it's just saying like the 0 to the quantity number, which is kind of cool because it does like an auto gradient for you. Okay, now we have the quantity done, but we want to add a label so we actually know what the quantity is. So this defaults to labeling both the 0 and the quantity. But if you go into the label on the marks card and you say, I just want to see it at the line ends, and this is a little counterintuitive, we actually want it to be at the start of the line, not the end. And that gives us at the end of the line. So now we know that these are our number of units. We can go and edit that label again and just tell it, like this is units. And we could do that dynamic text also for this, to where same logic of if it's more than one, we would have it be plural or singular if it's just one. Next, we're going to do our final one, which is just going to be our sales. We're actually going to change this because it's going to be a bar. We're going to change the min 0 to be a min 1. We're going to edit the axis of that min 1. We're going to tell it have a fixed start and end from 0 to 1. And now it's giving that appearance of like a heat map feel, kind of like with our conditional formatting from before. So we don't need the measure names here. That just automatically generated because we brought in the measure values shelf, the other one. In this case, we care about sales. So I'll drag that to label, then sales again on color. Again, make sure that this is center aligned. And now we have our sales, and they're being called out by the color range. That's all of our different charts in the different columns. I like to edit the axis and unselect show header so we kind of clean it up a bit. We can also take out these 0 lines and the other formatting.
That was my question. I was wondering what line that was.
Yeah, it's always hard to find the lines. There's so many options, but I just go through and I say for the whole sheet, let's leave the row divider and take out everything else, or we don't really need the row divider. So we'll take all those out. Then if you go to the format lines, This is where you have to take out the 0 lines and the axis tick, and the grid lines on columns.
It really helps.
Yeah, it feels just like cleaner.
Mm-hmm.
Now we have all of our columns done. Let's take it a step further and add in our sorting. So for this one, we'll start with the parameter again. We'll edit that. This is a different one. And this is really cool because we're going to sort by different value types. We have our order ID, which is a string. We have, the numerical days since the order was placed, a date field, and then a couple other ones that are similar. Say okay. We'll show our parameter. This one is also going to work with that sort order. I'll show that one. Then we'll go into our sort by action just to show that. These are a little more complex, but I mean, I say just copy and paste this and use it. If you have a string field, I would use this one, and I'll go through what this sortable order ID is. And if you have a date field, just make sure to use this one, but any of the other ones you can just use like the, if you have a measure that's being aggregated, you just put it in like this. For the other strings, like for city and state, you're actually going to want to use that ASCII, which basically tells you a numerical value for the first letter of a word, but not to get too into the weeds. Okay, so we have our sort by, and just to call out that other calculation I mentioned, if you have a value that you want to sort by that has like the string, so it's technically a string, but it has these different, delimiters in it. It also has numbers and text. We're going to need to tell Tableau what to do with it in order to properly sort it. And this would be in my sorting calc. So yeah, the sortable ID, we just pop that open. Basically, we're telling it replace the order ID like left with, or I'm sorry, to replace those delimiters with nothing. So we're making it a full string, and to take that left 2 characters in this case that are letters, and we're going to turn that into a number. So then we're just putting the entire number string together. So in order to use this, we need to bring back in our index up here. Say index, discrete, bring it to the front. We're going to go back in like before and do the edit table calculation. Specific dimensions, and we're going to select all of these. So you'll notice that a lot of these are not actually on the rows shelf, but they are dimensions that are on the marks card. So we need to include them in our specific dimensions selected. We'll do the sort order again, custom, and then we'll look for that sort by calc. So it'll be this first one. Descending. You can close that out. And yeah, now we have a sortable, sortable chart. So if let's not show that header. And over here, you can see we can change it. We have order ID, the days since it was shipped. So the oldest orders at the top. Same with the ship date. And these can be any fields that are relevant. And the shipment destination is just going based off of the city. But this would just be alphabetical.
Well, and there's a question that came in that is, I think, relevant to that. And it came from Min. And it said, if you keep the column headers in, are you able to sort in the table directly, or is it a best practice to create the sorting parameters and use that to sort?
Yeah, that's a good question. I would recommend to just use the parameters instead of the headers. And in
Hmm.
this case, you can't have the headers that you normally would have because we have those um, the dummy values up here. So it's not going to give you the headers that you normally would have. Like over here, this is actually a container that I made. And then you just make sure that the spacing is the same. And these are just text boxes that you can
Hmm.
go in and edit. But then it does keep it a little, I think it's a little easier to do it with the parameters just because, you know, on a normal table, when you have the header like that, it's not going to do a regular, like it's not going to do a nested sort, and you can't control which values. It's only going to sort these individually,
So the parameter
which
gives
is
you
so
more control, it sounds like.
right.
Hmm.
Yeah, and I think it's a little easier too because then you know
Yeah.
exactly what you're sorting by at any given time. I mean, you can see this up right here, but the icon's so small.
Yeah, it's easier for end users too. It's like a drop-down parameter. That's probably a bit more intuitive than sorting from the headers.
Right.
Yeah, hopefully that's helpful, Min. Good question.
Yeah, good question. So that's it for the chart type. Oh, I did want to go over Viz and tooltip on this last one.
Yeah.
So for the Viz and tooltip, and this would apply if you're planning to publish this to your Tableau site for users to interact with it, or if it's being embedded in like your website portal. Basically, just adding a little more detail to a tooltip can keep your dashboard clean and not like be overstimulated by different values and charts and whatnot.
Hmm.
So if we go and make a new sheet, we're going to do for this one, it's the category. I'm going to say I want to see the top products for each category. So we're going to bring in product name. We're going to bring in our date filter again. True. This is going to be hidden, so we don't really need that parameter. I think it's proved itself with the date. So we have product name in there. Then we're going to do, in this case, just sales. And at this point, it's like we're doing a table within a table. But I think it's a good opportunity to make it a chart within a table. So we do our measure values instead of just sales again. Oh, and actually another way to do this, if we already have sales in there, sometimes it gets weird. When in doubt, just start a new sheet. So let's drag product name again, sales onto show me, and then we want that zero calculation again. So in this case, I'm going to do those rounded bars again. So I love rounded bars. We're going to take measure values, put them on columns, measure names. I'm going to go into detail here, but we need to change this to a line. Then we'll have measure names on the path and measure names on the color. So yeah, now we have our rounded bars. make them a little bit thicker. We can hide this axis, so just don't show the header. We can hide these field labels as well. We'll call that out in the tooltip. Now we have our bars. We want to bring sales onto the label. We'll do the same thing again where we'll say line ends, start of line. I should also call out that as a default, or as a way to make sure that your measures are default format as a like currency, for example, a good trick is to select it from the left, go into default properties, number format, and then you can select the number format. So if you bring it into any view in the workbook, it'll remember to always format it this way. But you still have the ability to go in on the worksheet and say format. I don't really care about the decimals, so I just want currency without any decimals. So after that, I want this to be sorted, and we're going to use index to also do top 5. So I go in, I'll take index, I'll be discrete on the rows, and we're going to bring that to the front. We don't need to show it. It knows what it's doing. We'll do edit table calculation. We only have one dimension, and we're not going to do a custom sort by for this one. We just want to know the sales. So we'll say sales, need to change this to be a sum because it's not pre-aggregated, and we'll see descending. Let's edit the height a little bit so we can see more. Maybe the width a little bit. So that's looking good. Now to get the top sales or top product sales, we'll take that index again. We'll drag it to filters. Say, I just want top 5. Then you have to, sometimes it remembers. Nope, we'll just have to tell it again to do the specific dimensions, custom, and then sales. Descending and sum. Now this is going to clear that filter from before just because we made a change, but we'll just tell it again to do a range of 1 through 5. Now we have our rounded bars, just the top 5, and this is actually better because when you do a normal top 5, you would say like top 5 of the product name over here as a filter. And that works, and you can select sales. But then you have to remember every filter that you apply has to be in context or else it messes up the sorting. Because basically the hierarchy of filters says we're going to apply the ones in context before anything else, and it needs to know to only like query from that group of values after the filters have been applied. But index, it's cool. It's not as high maintenance, I guess. So yeah, that's our Vision tooltip. If we go back to our sheet over here, we just select tooltip. We don't really need this index. That's not relevant. We'll say top 5 products by sales. We have a new line. We'll do insert sheet. And we'll look for that sheet 26. With this, if you do this preview, it'll kind of show you, you can tell that it's getting cut off. That's because we haven't set the max height and width to be large enough. And I found that 500 worked for this, but I think you can go all the way up to 1,000. So now when you hover over, it'll show our top 5 products without actually having to bring the products into the view. Yeah, that's everything.
That's really good.
We got everything.
Well, someone
Any
just asked
questions?
if
Oh,
they came in late, if we'll have the recording, and the answer is yes, of course. We'll have it sent out over email. This will be on our Zeo Matrix YouTube channel as well. Like and subscribe if you can. Um, Lauren, this is fantastic. I want to open up the floor for questions. I think you went into exceptional detail that'll be really good to play back on the recording for people. I also think these are really practical examples. So very, very well done. Let's open up the floor for questions. And if there aren't any questions, I have a few that I think might help the group as I've been thinking. But let's open up the floor and feel free to come off of mute or type in the chat window. I'll replay it back for Lauren if anyone wants to ask any questions. Okay. All right, no questions yet. All right, here's a question, Lauren. Um, I have a few. All right, so first one would be, for the folks on the call, like if you just summarized what we all went through today, it seems like indexing is very important for enhanced tables and tabular reports. It seems like the use of parameters for sorting is also very important, and that might not be, in people's normal workflow. So that was really interesting. Um, it seems like you had, for enhanced visuals, you had multiple dummy fields, min zero, average zero, that could accomplish rounded bars. What am I missing? Just like to kind of summarize the kind of important ingredients here.
I would say, oh, the formatting is good to call out certain values and just make it more visually
Yeah.
interesting, which I think is important for every level of user or
Yeah.
end user.
Right. Even as detailed as like removing the grid lines, right? Is
Right.
even something so small, or pulling down the grid to give yourself more room is is a good reminder. Um, okay. Where did you learn these? If we look at the chart table or even dynamic sorting, did you learn that on projects in practical scenarios, or did you follow, or was there Tableau public examples that kind of helped you get there faster?
Yeah, so I do a lot of the Workout Wednesdays from
Hmm.
Tableau. So most of this I got from Workout Wednesday. I definitely recommend trying those out. And they always well, most of them let you download the workbook. So if it's like too high level, at least you have access to all the calcs. And that's really how I learned Tableau in general. I was just kind of
Yeah.
thrown into it, and public is amazing and the community is amazing. So it's really easy to become a super user.
Yeah. Pat just asked about Workout Wednesday. Do you want to take a second, Lauren, and just kind of give us the synopsis of what Workout Wednesday is? We can
Yeah, and
link
actually,
that too, Pat.
and I could pull it up.
It's a Tableau workout, Pat, not a
Oh yeah, not actual workout. No, I prefer my workouts in Tableau. So yeah, this is Workout Wednesday. It's just different users from Biz Story and the Information Lab,
Hmm.
but it's linked on Tableau Public under the resources. But yeah, you just go into Tableau because who cares about Power BI anyway? We just care about Tableau. Yeah, and there's just different every week they have a different one that they publish, and you can find all kinds of really cool and practical tips and tricks.
That's awesome.
Oh, this one's
Totally
really cool.
free. I assume you have to even create an account, I guess.
No, you don't even have to
Yeah.
create an account. You just like click in. They give you, a summary of what they're doing or trying to accomplish. They give you the challenge and
Yeah,
then the data set as well.
that's cool.
Yeah, then you can just go to Tableau Public, download the workbook, and see how they got to that finished product, which is always really cool.
I think that's one of the biggest tips too, is just reverse engineering a workbook. So this workbook, by the way, team, it'll be shared. so that you have it. We'll make sure it gets out to everyone because that'll be really helpful. I understand that a lot of these steps are, it's hard to memorize all the steps. So with the recording and with the workbook, that should really help. And I think for any of these, if you put any of these tables in practical use, that'll be really important to have as a template. And then, I think, Lauren, it seems like those steps, you've just gotten so accustomed to doing it that it's second nature, right, with practice,
Yeah, well,
is what it
honestly, I
seems
did
like.
have to practice before this because usually I build stuff out, I go into some other like zone, and then I come
Yeah.
to you and there's a dashboard. So
Yeah, right. Right. Well, this is awesome. Yeah, we'll get the recording out. If y'all have any feedback on what you would like, Lauren and I will be thinking of the next sessions. I could see another formatting. With your perspective, Lauren, yeah, we've got some good topic areas, but we'd love to hear from you guys if you have any ideas, that'll help us plan these sessions.